Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series. This is round number 6 of the season, coming to you tonight from Auto Club Speedway. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Kennan Miller. Joshua Wilkie is our producer for tonight's broadcast, using cameras provided by Whiplash SimCams. Heading into the final 3 rounds of this season, we tackle one of the most threatening racetracks there is here in this sim. Despite the fact that the Auto Club Speedway has since gone the way of the Dodo Bird, it hosted some absolutely fantastic races as it was still around, including the last ever time IndyCars ran here back in 2015, which, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best IndyCar races there has ever been in the history of American open wheel racing. Auto Club is a tough track. This track is really patchy. It was a track that never had a repave in its entire time in its existence, so Kennan, tonight, these drivers have a real tough task on their hands to try and tackle this racetrack.
Yeah, it's certainly a high-speed track, very fast track, very wide track. We're going to see a lot of side-by-side, a lot of different drafting, very much in many ways like NASCAR at Daytona. It's going to be a draft race. You're going to see some cars get tight, how cars can adjust. They've got tools on their steering wheel between the anti-roll bars and the weight jacker that'll be very crucial to get a full field run and make sure the car stays underneath them.
And these drivers also have spent a massive amount of time up to this point trying to hone their setup here in this open set series. These drivers have the world at their hands to try and craft a good car to run around here at a steady click of well over 220 miles an hour at certain points in time. This is going to be a quick and a fast-paced race here tonight. Currently in this qualifying session, which those who haven't tuned into one of these oval broadcasts before, 5 minutes and 3 laps. These drivers have the track all to their lonesome. They can just hit the ground running and try and have a good run here in this qualifying session. Charlie Hosea is currently your top place qualifier at the present moment. Looks like he's just about done with his qualifying attempt as Leo Dragata jumping up to second, Neil Weston slot in third, Eduardo Lorente in P4. Dave Menino, though, the driver who has been very quick up to this point in this season, one last time out at Barber, he's looking to grab yet another pole position from this season. Let's see what he'll be able to do, and let's see what the rest of the field will be able to do with a tick under 2 minutes left to go.
Yeah, the qualifying times are starting to kind of come in. They've only got 3 laps to get it done here. We see first and second are very close right now as we see Leonardo Dragota go right across the line. Improves just barely, but still not enough to take it to Charles Hosa there.
We got 3 different times that Dave Menino started this race from the pole position. We'll start this races this season from the pole position, I should say, and have had 3 different pole sitters up to this point in time. But if Charlie Hosea can just hang on, he will become that 4th. Let's see what Leo Dragata can do right towards the end of this session. Series admin Josh Shinsky, while the next cars across the line here in a couple of moments time in the 18. He's got to come across the line. That SRT Esports car looking good in terms of his lap times, but not going to be up there. A little bit surprising there to find himself at a 33.346. We'll have some time to gain in the final few laps in this qualifying session. Stephen Hudek, though, who's had a really hard charge over the past couple of races this season, he's looking good in the first 2 sectors. The driver of the number 44 car grabbed his first breakout win a couple of weeks ago at Long Beach, and he's looking to improve right now, going down to the apron, which is oh so sketchy in these race cars, crosses the line and goes to the pole to 32.603.
Yeah, it was quite an improvement. That was a really good lap. I think he kind of showed the advantage of using the apron. It's not the most settling thing for a driver to get onto it with the IndyCar, but if you can make it stick and not lose control, you will certainly find a good 10th and a half just taking the apron on this long straightaway.
And Josh Shinsky jumped up to P2 a couple of moments after Stephen Hudek was able to jump up into the provisional pole position, but will not be able to complete that 3rd lap. So that's qualifying done here at Auto Club, and it's going to be Stephen Hudek starting this race from the pole position. We're going to take a quick commercial break here from the fantastic folks at XMS. I'll be right back to hopefully have a chat with our pole sitter.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. Whether you're just looking to have fun, train for race day, or become a serious esports competitor, Ricmotech has you covered. Hundreds of name-brand parts. Support from experts that love sim racing. Trusted by the pros. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org. The search is over. The most comprehensive league scoring solution is here, with the ability for multi-level championships, custom incident tracking, post-race time penalties, support for heats, drop weeks display, multi-car team scoring, advanced web widgets, rookie championships, a custom paint system, and load those results in seconds. Visit extremescoring.info today.
Ricmotech, high-performance sim racing equipment. There's only one place to go, ricmotech.com.
Back again here on Slow Motion Broadcasting with tonight's coverage of round number 6 of the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series. Steven Hudek is our pole sitter. He's joining us now in the commentary booth. Steven, that looked like a wild ride here in Auto Club. How about you talk us through the challenges of qualifying here?
Yeah, it's a really hot track, so you don't want to like hug the bottom of the racetrack as much as you would maybe in cooler conditions. So setting up for turn 1, kind of put it in the middle of the corner and sort of eased it into the corner and sort of aimed for sort of the end of that second lane coming out of turn 2, and then kind of a repeat coming into turn 3, sort of setting up for the middle of the track and sort of late apexing it, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, just getting that extra couple of hundredths there, just taking to the apron, coming to the line, and yeah, and let's pull.
Yeah, well, I saw you going down to the apron in that qualifying session. I was getting my own flashbacks of trying out this combination earlier on, and that transition being super, super rough. But switching our attention into this 125 lap long race coming up, will you all give us a preview as to what we're going to expect in this race coming up?
I think it'll be very similar to Indianapolis. I think people want to stay in the draft, conserve fuel and tires as much as possible, wait until relatively close to the end before we start getting real aggressive. This is a track where, unlike Indianapolis, it's multi-lane, so you can get 3-4 wide relatively comfortable. I say relatively comfortable, of course it's quite hair-raising, but yeah, it's lots of close pack racing for sure tonight.
Yeah, and I remember tuning into that 2015 IndyCar race here at Auto Club, and I remember that race being an absolute fever dream, but also fantastic to watch. So I have a feeling we're in for a good one here today, Steven. We'll let you go and switch your attention into the race. Good luck, man.
All right, thank you very much.
And that right there was our pole sitter, Steven Hudek, behind the wheel of the number 44 car, going to be leading us to green here in a couple of minutes' time, currently in warm-up. And with all that being squared away, I think we'll take a quick look at the championship point standings heading into this third-to-last race of this 8-round championship. It has been a barn burner up to this point, but Steven Hudek and Dave Menino have really proved themselves to be the top of the top when it comes to racers in this series thus far this season. And with 3 races left to go, you can see how it stands when it comes to that point standings. Dave Menino 193, Steven Hudek at 161. The championship fight is still going to be intense between those 2 racers, but Hudek certainly looking to perform well here at Auto Club tonight, and hoping that Dave Menino in the 3 car does have his very own struggles. And you can see pretty close fight with Josh Shinsky and Sophia Connell, who skipped out on last week. I'm not entirely sure if Sophia Connell is going to be racing with us here this evening. That's how it looks in the drivers' point standings. Gotta take a quick on look at the team's point standings here to let you know that SRT Esports leads that quite comfortably at 342 points. It's a big gap that they've got. There's no shadow of a doubt about it. You can see the rest of the teams lined up there. But as we switch our attention into this 125 lap long race here, Kennan, we've got a lot of stuff to worry about. And one thing that's catching my attention is the track temperatures, 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Holy cow.
Yeah, the track's been hot all weekend long. It's been a very warm one. Drivers know it. You heard pole sitter Steven Hudek talk about it, just how much it affected his entry into turn 1. So we will see drivers probably be a little cautious, make sure that the tires get warm, all the grip comes up to temperature, and then we may see the draft racing happen a little more strongly. I'm kind of looking forward to as well. We will have a pit stop here, a little bit of a smaller field, may see some good green flag racing in a full run. I'm figuring the pit window can open up really anywhere around the halfway point at lap 60, 65. I may be miscalculating it, but from what it looks like they're using on fuel and reading the data, I think they can maybe get that far. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that. If not, you'll see a 2-stop race. Tires shouldn't be too big of an issue unless you see somebody spin out and really overcook them.
And as we roll out of pit lane and onto this 2-mile-long D-shaped oval, let's take a look at the starting grid, where it's going to be Steven Hudek, the Canadian, starting this race from the pole. Series admin Josh Shinsky set to join him on that front row. We'll have Charlie Hosea starting this race in P3. Leo Dragata will start alongside in 4th. Dave Menino looking to try and do well in these final 3 races and seal the deal in the first ever season of this series and win the championship, is in 5th. Alongside him will be Neil Weston, the 6th car, starting this race in 6th. Eduardo Lorente will start in 7th, with Jake Mackey making his series return after skipping out the past few races. Will round out your 8-car grid for this race coming up here this evening. It's got to be a good one. We are expecting some drama. We're expecting sparks to fly, and we're expecting these drivers to have a lot of stuff to juggle throughout this race. The bumps around this track, it's what made Auto Club right towards the end. It was a bumpy, patchy racetrack. Even with the scan in the sim, you can see the tar lines running all around this racetrack, trying to seal up those cracks. But in these low-slung, low-riding Indy cars with no power steering, it's got to be a physical race for these drivers, even in the sim. And with high track temperatures, it's going to create a real tough ask for these drivers. The tires going to be melting. These drivers going to be cooking under the pressure with only 3 races left to go in this season. This is the last super speedway, and we are green here at Auto Club. The green flag's down. The drivers are on their way. Steven Hudek getting off to a flyer of a start, as side-by-side racing going to go on right behind between Josh Shinsky and Charlie Hosea. That's going to be Hosea and the Rockefeller Racing number 100 car trying to make something work on the inside, but Leo Dragata got a look on the outside as they head their way out of 2 onto the backstretch.
You see Hudek, he had a really phenomenal start. Hopefully he may be able to break away, maybe not allow that draft to capture on the rear end too bad, and he may find himself being able to pull away and not get stuck with the draft. Sometimes the draft will speed you up. It can certainly slow you down. As we see, there's almost contact with the wall. I think everybody got through clean.
Yeah, I think everyone negotiated the first lap of this race clean, but just barely. In the case of Charlie Hosea, had a lot of scrub heading his way through turn number 1 and 2. You can just see that from Menino's perspective, that Rockefeller number 100 car jumping up into the high side. The thing is with this combination, from what I was feeling earlier, if you can get some good exits around here, you're going to be golden. If you get a little bit of understeer, get a little bit of scrub, you're going to be in for a world of trouble. So these drivers are going to look to try and manage that, get some good exits as well as they can. As we take a look at a fight maybe gonna flare up involving Josh Shinsky and Leo Dragata, who briefly had the fast lap of the race before Jake Mackey in the number 60 car took it. Mackey getting off to a flyer, already jumping up to P5 as the driver of the 60 car, so looking to have a good race in his regard as well. Steven Hudek still leading it side by side going on involving Shinsky and Dragata. Very briefly, Dave Menino, the series points leader, looking to get involved in that action as well. 2 drivers that I want to keep in mind for this race are the 6 of Neil Weston, currently slotted in 7th, and the 44 of Steven Hudek. The only 2 drivers in sim right now who I believe have their own spotters, may be a factor once we start to see side-by-side racing involving those 2.
Yeah, you can see Joshua Chinsky there running 2nd place, still in quite a fight with Leonardo. Definitely fighting some understeer right now. He does have the adjustments in the control, whether he's trying to work on the wheel a little bit or not. And you can see as they all enter the corner, very much staggered. You lose the front end air off of the front end of these cars, and it certainly tightens you up.
And when you start to see these drivers struggle in the dirty air, you can feel the pain as they scrub those front tires. I think one driver looking to get involved in all this is Jake Mackey. Just got moved on Dave Menino. He's running the high side at the present moment with 5 cars covered by just about nothing at the north end of the field. Hudek, still your race leader. Josh Shinsky slotted in P2 as Mackey trying to make something work around the outside of Dragata for third. It's going to be a fight down into turn number 3 and 4 with them still going side by side. And it may be Dave Menino on the high side, making it 3 wide there as they head their way onto the start finish straight away. That'll be oh so close to 60 car, getting that clear on the high side and immediately going for it. He has some aspirations of grandeur. He wants to take the lead of this race. Just jumped up into P2 and he's now looking for a move on Hudek to take the race lead.
Jake Mackey certainly finding speed here as we've completed 5 laps, now working on the 6th, and he's going to make a look outside for the lead. He may take it. Hudek has certainly fallen off after the opening lead that he took, and you see they'll be side by side coming to the line out of 4. Mackey gets a little tight right up against the wall. You can see he'll bring it right down. He'll try to use every bit of air he can to get by and clear him through turn 1 and 2.
And from my personal experience running this combination, the inside line off through 1 and 2 around this track, super tough. You've got a bump here as well. You can just see it there from Hudek. These cars oscillating as they head their way around this track, buffeting at the highest of speed as Mackey going to try and clear him down the backstretch into 3 and 4. Not close enough as the 44 of Hudek still going to be alongside him. It's practically nothing between these racers. Leo Dragata maybe got to try and size up a move as well in the 118 car. You get the him trying to get the draft as much as he can off the back of Steven Hudek to be able to jump his way into P2. Mackey gonna clear Hudek for the race lead. Dragata still slotted in second. Josh Shinsky and Dave Menino round at your top 5 at the present moment. Steven Hudek, what he needs to do in this race more than anything is to be able to finish in front of Dave Menino. The 44 and the 3 are the main 2 drivers involved in that championship battle, and only one of them can be the champion at the end of this season. Hudek, he needs to have a good run of form in these last few races to be able to jump in front of Menino, and hope that Menino gets struck by some falling anvils between now and the end of the season coming up in about 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, consistency is always the key, and we've already had to highlight it a couple times just how easy it is to understeer. One touch on the wall with these cars and you're looking at pretty much being done for the race. So you can't really risk any kind of mistake early on. There's still a very long way to go, almost 115 laps. So anything you do to hurt your race early is only going to cost you points in the championship, and staying up front, getting a top 2, making sure you're at least in a position for the win at the end is really crucial for everybody in this race.
That's a great point that you raised there, Kennan, because in a series like this that only has 8 races to a season, if you're consistent and always up towards the front of the field, you're going to be golden when it comes to the championship. You can have some fantastic speed week in and week out, but if you can't get those finishes, if you can't get the points, it's all going to come down to naught at the end of the day. And I think that's part of the reason why Dave Menino has been so quick. The only bad race he's had up to this point was Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago, and that's mainly because he didn't even show up to that race. Ever since then, he's been consistent, he's been quick, despite the fact he's been involved in some incidents here and there, including one at Long Beach where he got a rather disappointing result there as Steven Hudek was able to break through and grab his first win. It's still been good for Dave Menino, so let's see what the SRT Esports driver behind the wheel of the number 3 car will be able to do. He's slotted in 5th at the present moment. The top 7 really involved in their own pack. Eduardo Lorente in the number 91 car has lost touch of the field ever so slightly. He's lost the draft and will continue to drop back, currently slotted in P8. The last of the cars out here on the racetrack at the present moment. Here's a fight, maybe got flare up involving Charlie Jose and Neil Weston. They're side by side across the line down the front stretch into 1 and 2, and looks like that will be Hosea remaining in that P6 spot. Weston, who dropped down to 7th in the early stages of this race, still running there now, and these two maybe gonna battle a little bit more and potentially lose the back of Menino. So that may be a 2 cars getting knocked out of this domino fight at the front of the field.
Yeah, and you can see 12 laps in, we're already watching different setups. They're certainly taking advantage. Mackey's very much got a controlling lead, but Hudek is really just staying right on him. He's made a couple looks for the lead, not quite had the run to look inside and actually take the lead back, but starting to see the bottom 3 drivers are starting to fall off a little bit on the field. Their tires maybe wearing a little more than the top 5, but top 5's all right in a position to win. You can see they're settled down single file going down the backstretch. I think this is kind of getting to the point where we've got to ride. We've got to be able to knock laps off. We've got to get to the pit stop, and then we've got to see how our advantage looks from there.
As we ride on board with Stephen Hudek on the front nose of this race car. It's like sitting down on the front of his car and having a chill, leisurely view of the back of Jake Mackey's car. A very nice and chill, leisurely view of the back of that race car, as if he's not going a steady click of 356 kilometers, 221 miles an hour for those who prefer the American units. Hey, we're racing in the States. We're racing with the premier open wheel cars here in the country. So screw all that kilometer stuff. What's a kilometer at the end of the day? It's we always got to bring out the meme references during these broadcasts, but still, very quick. These drivers are absolutely hauling the mail around this racetrack. We still got a lot of racing action left to go, pushing lap 15 of this 125 lap long race. Jake Mackey, though, in the number 60 car, he has really impressed me up to this point, still holding on to the lead. He's not getting the best fuel mileage because he isn't in the draft. At the same time, I think Mackey, he is in it to win. It's the driver of that 60 car hasn't been able to win a race up to this point, and was a little bit frustrated after how things went for him at Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. But he's here now at Auto Club, and he's here to fight.
Yeah, you can see he's very strong and wanting to make sure he has the lead. You have to wonder if he hasn't somewhat learned what he has. He knows he has a race-winning car, that it may be time for him to give up the lead and find a little better drafting position, sort of share the wealth of fuel mileage with the top 3-4 cars. At the same time, the best place you always want to be is the lead, and depending on how the fuel breaks down, it may not be too much of a fuel mileage race. I think you're going to have to make your stop regardless, and there's not really going to be too much of a necessity in saving a lap or two. Could all change, obviously, if a caution comes out, but it looks like everybody's been racing quite respectively. I don't see any major mistakes coming forth ahead.
And these drivers avoiding the apron run through the trial, which, oh, you can hear that big lift from Neil Weston as he headed his way on the inside of Charlie Hosea. That, I think, it may have been the bump that he hit heading through there. I mentioned that a little bit earlier on in this show. These Indy cars, as much as they can stick to the ground quite well, this track is not silky smooth. This pavement was the original pavement when the track was built all the way back in the late 90s. Never repaved it in the entire time that this track has been in existence. In fact, the small little bit of the start-finish straightaway that still remains in real life, that, who knows, they may hopefully make that short track out of here in the coming years. That is still the original asphalt of this track. They never repaved it. They never did anything of the sorts. So you can just see the bumps that these cars have to deal with. And the bumps through the turns, they can be a real detriment. They can be a huge make or break moment, as that was Shinsky hitting the wall, I believe, coming out of turn number 4. We can see that puff of smoke.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see how he does in turn 1. I don't think he touched the wall too bad. Maybe just a little tire scrape. We'll have to go back and check that on the replay, maybe from the onboard, and see just how bad the suspension looks. But seems like he's getting through turns 1 and 2 all right. I think he may have been very lucky he can get through that unscathed.
Yeah, I think he dodged a bullet as he headed his way out of turn number 4. Doesn't look like there's any major damage on that race car, not even aerodynamic damage. It looks like he's still has a bit of a draft from the 3 cars up in front, although that gap has certainly ballooned out a bit between Dragata in 3rd and Shinsky in 4th. It's still practically nothing as they head their way down into turn number 1 and 2. Jake Mackey is still your race leader. Stephen Hudek slot in 2nd, Dragata in 3rd, and the 2 SRT Esports teammates of Josh Shinsky and championship contender Dave Menino round at your top 5 presently. The Neil Weston and Charlie Hosea fight has broken up a little bit with about 7/10 of a second between those 2 racers, and Weston did briefly lose touch with these drivers. Once that gap breaks above a second, like Charlie Hosea's gap now has between himself and Neil Weston, that will be when we start to see these drivers drop back like a rock. And I think something is really going on with Hosea. 34.0 last time by, compared to the 33s and the 32s throughout the vast majority of the field. Something may have gone on with Hosea in the 100 car. That was a really bad run last time by.
Clearly has a concerning issue going on right now, losing almost a second over the whole field just in the last lap and a half. He's certainly fallen out. It looks like he's stabilized a little bit, giving Eduardo Lorente a little help with the draft, but I'm not quite sure what must have happened there. I wonder if he's fighting with some damage, or maybe his car's just kind of starting to really go sour on him late into this run.
Yeah, that car is definitely not driving as well as it did at one point in time. Even then, last time by, not looking very good when it comes to pace. I think there may be something awry with that 100 car. May have been a wall tap that's put a little bit of damage on that race car. Regardless, though, he's fallen out of that fight. So it's now 6 cars battling for the race lead, battling for those top 5 spots, and battling for the podium. It's still going to be an intense fight all throughout this race. But I think these drivers, they've kind of reached the point where they're thinking, you know what? We aren't even a fifth of the way through this race, coming up to that here in about a lap and a half time. So these drivers, I think they've realized, you know what, there's no real point forcing this issue too much. Let's just enjoy the draft, let's enjoy the slipstream, and let's enjoy these good fuel numbers. As we've seen throughout this season up to this point, these races can be made or broken through strategy and strategy alone. So I think these drivers really are starting to see the greener pastures farther up the road by remaining patient now and setting yourself well to be good on lap 124 instead of lap 24.
Yeah, the tires are certainly starting to settle in. The cars are starting to settle in. The weight's getting out of the car from the fuel burning off. There's a lot of different changes everybody's making through. It looks like single file is the way to go. You have to make it to lap 125 to win the race. Everybody's still all essentially within 1 second of each other between the top 6. So there's no need to push the issue anywhere, create a mistake that you wouldn't want to have ruin your entire race. You see Hudek still giving Mackey quite a few different looks, though, coming out of both corners in 2 and 4, and maybe just making him have to sweat a little bit being the race leader.
It was Eduardo Lorente has made the call to come down pit lane, the number 91 car. He's had a really unfortunate run of things up to this point. Not sure whether or not there's any damage on that race car or what the deal is with Lorente, but he has certainly lost out on a lot of speed up to this point, and he has now made that call to come into the pits. We'll have to see how he exits that compared to these race leaders. Believe he will certainly go a lap down, as he's still down in pit lane right now. So I think Lorente may have potentially called it at that. We will touch on that here in a couple of laps once we get into this. Oh, it was a moment actually for Lorente. So that was heading through turn number 4, tapped the wall ever so slightly, spun to the infield. Because he was in the infield though, and south of the banking, I think that was part of the reason why a yellow did not come out. But hey, Kennan, if he was stopped about 50 feet a little farther up the banking, that would have been a game-changing yellow.
Yeah, it looks like he just gets in the corner a little too hot, maybe a little too light in the rear. I'm sure he's been messing with the weight checker, trying to find speed to regain the front pack the whole run, and just loses the rear end, really slaps that right rear suspension really hard. I think they probably pulled it in and looked at that right rear suspension, and there's just no way they're going to fix it before the end of the race.
Yeah, small little tap of the wall. It may not seem like too much, but in these cars, that can be a huge amount of damage. No fast repairs allotted to these racers, so any sort of suspension tweak or something of the sort, doubly so if you've had a really bad race up to this point. There's really no point in continue on. So I believe Eduardo Lorente has become the first retirement of this race, coming 28 laps into this 125 lap long race. 15 and a half minutes have already been contended, and Jake Mackey certainly proving himself to be very fast. But these front 3 all have something to prove. Steven Hudek, he's looking to get involved in that championship battle. He is the closest driver to Dave Menino. Really, at this point in the season, he would be the only one to try and challenge Dave Menino for this season championship here for the first ever season of the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series. Jake Mackey and Leo Dragato on the other end, they're looking for wins. Mackey looking to right the wrongs that happened at Indy a couple of weeks ago with the only oval we've had up to this point in the season before this week's race. He's looking to do well here at Auto Club. And a shout out as well to Leo Dragata in the 118 car. Dragata is a driver that I've experienced covering on the road course side of things in the XMS world. He used to do some race control for the XMS road course series. And I remember Leo being a very quick racer. He's a young kid, but he's quick behind the wheel. So we may have to keep an eye on the 118. He was quick a couple of weeks ago on the road course, but now on the oval, looks like he's going to try and contend for a race win as well. So all 3 up at the front of this field have something to prove.
And top 3 have certainly put themselves as the main contenders, I think, for the checkered flag today. Leo is really looking good in traffic. He's not really had to make too many adjustments in a lot of the corners. He's even utilizing staying right behind the car. He's not searching for a whole lot of air in the front wing. Seems like he's got a very stable ride right now, and it's just a matter of time before he's willing to make his move.
Yeah, let's see what these drivers are going to do in this race. Will this be that point where, I think it's the other speed skating events. I can't remember what Olympic sport it is when they all kind of run in a line, just saving their energy for the end. Then when we get towards the end of this stint, it's not going to be all the way until the end of the race. It's definitely going to be towards the end of this stint. These drivers are going to be pushing it up, raising that tempo up, and then they're really going to start to push it. So we may end up seeing that here in this race. These drivers just looking to get the good fuel numbers, looking to maybe experiment as Estragada trying to get something to work down the inside of Steven Hudek. Not going to have a good run on the exit though. That high side just going to keep the momentum rolling up at the north end of the banking, and Hudek still going to remain in second. But credit to Leo Dragata. He's trying, he's experimenting. What we're seeing from the driver of the 118 car, he's dipping his toes in the pool, testing that temperature of the water, and seeing exactly what he may be able to do a little bit later on.
I think a lot of these drivers, they're not used to having such a warm track right now. They've been managing it really well. They were talking in qualifying just how difficult it was to run all the way at the bottom. You saw dipping to the bottom there wasn't going to give him the greatest run out of turn 2 on the back stretch, and this time he's just kind of trying to build another run and sort of see what he has. But there's a long way to go, and you've got to make sure when you've got 5 laps left and only one move to make, you know you're making the right move.
And you brought up a good point there, Kennan, talking about the temperature of this racetrack. It has not gone down and hasn't increased, though. It's still at 117 degrees Fahrenheit. And Riza said that actually dipped down to 116. So, wow, this track is absolutely freezing at the present moment. I'm sure these drivers are going to be bundled up once they come back to pit lane, as Jake Mackey feeling the freezer burn as the track temperatures dip down by 1 degree Fahrenheit. That's less than 1%.
It seems insane, but just that 1 degree will make all the world of a difference in something like an IndyCar. These cars are so technical, they're so finesse. Every little adjustment and detail from the outer world or inside the car makes all the difference. So seeing that track temp drop down is definitely giving the drivers a little more confidence when they're looking at where they'll be at the end of the race. They're going to spend the next 100 laps, well, 90 laps now as we have remaining. Every chance they can get their couple pit stops, they're going to try and drop some wing out of the car. They're going to try and get a little less downforce. Things are going to wear in, rubber's going to settle in. The track is getting a tick cooler, even if it doesn't seem like a lot. So you'll start to see who really starts to shine as we get out into the final 30 laps.
Yeah, we're going to see who is going to shine the brightest in this race, who has the strongest filament in their light bulb, and who is going to burn bright at the end of this race. Let's just wait and see. Still have a lot of time between then and now, and hopefully all of you tuning into this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting have enjoyed the racing action up to this point, and if you have to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss out on any of the broadcasting action here on SMP. Got a lot of stuff to look forward to as we rapidly approach upon the start of season 3 of 2025 here in the sim, and we've now got a battle flaring up involving Steven Hudek and Leo Dragata, those two rather close at the front of the field. It looked like we were going to see Leo Dragata maybe try and give a bit of a bump draft there, but we did not get that. Instead, we've still got very close racing between these competitors. It's going to be a race of these drivers running right behind each other and throwing each other dummies, and then occasionally throwing each other some haymakers just to throw them for a loop.
Yeah, you've got to keep your competitors always kind of guessing. You can't let them think everybody's a little too content running single file. I think most of the drivers are under the understanding they're not trying to create incidents or touch wheels at this point in the stage of the race, but you do have a very competitive top 6 right now, and they're all running right in line, and at some point you have to position yourself to be in a spot to get a win in the race, to get a good pit stop. I think where we're really going to see separation is when we get to the pit stops. We're going to see who can enter quick, who can enter slow. It's going to make all the world a difference, and depending on who makes that final draft pack.
As we see Steven Hudek, I think he just got moved on to Mackey. Mackey's slowing. Mackey coming down pit lane in the 60 car. That is a big strategy call at the front of this field. Jake Mackey going to be the first racer to come down pit lane of his own fruition. Of course, Eduardo Lorente came down earlier on after that crash through turn number 4. He's joined in the pits by Charlie Hosea, so he's not going to be completely alone, but at the same time, Mackey trying a different strategy. I wonder if this will potentially work for the driver of the number 60 car. Has a bit of a lockup heading down into pit lane, but hits his marks well. A couple of weeks ago in this series, Kennan, when the series rocked up to Indianapolis running the 100 lap long race on the oval, had some difficulties with drivers missing their pit entry and missing their marks on pit lane, and that really shook up that race. These drivers gonna look to try and avoid that as well as they can with these cars, which, let's face it, they're made on these oval setups to turn left and go fast. They're not made to turn into a pit stall on a flat track and try and get woed up to a stop.
Yeah, you see Josh and Mackie, he really had quite a nice pit stop, a good entry, a good exit, but as you can see in front of him, there's no one in front to work with or get a draft with. I don't think Charlie Hosea, 6 seconds behind him, he didn't have quite as quick of a pit stop. That's going to leave him kind of stranded. I think the pit window is open. We see Leo Dragata is now in, so I think the pit window is open. You're going to see everybody cycle through here in the next few laps, but coming in first, a very risky strategy when you know you're going out without any help, so I think he may find himself a little more tucked into the field when everybody regathers.
Yeah, so Leo Dragata going to be coming down pit lane as well as, you can see that's right as we mentioned that, right as we mentioned, it is super, super costly to have that happen to him. Stephen Hudek and Neil Weston going to be coming down pit lane as well, but that's a big mistake for Leo Dragata, the 118 car, going to drop down like a rock. 9.4 seconds that he spent stopped in the pit stall, but far more time. You can see that's exactly what the pole sitter Indy did a couple of weeks ago, and Robert Schwartzman came in for his first oval pit stop at the Indy 500 in real life a couple of weeks ago. Did that exact same thing. Unfortunately, in real life, going to have the risk of injuries to the crewmen, but here in the sim, still going to hurt just as much for the driver. Stephen Hudek and Neil Weston going to spend 10.1 seconds stopped in their pit stall each, and that's the exact same time that Jake Mackey spent as well. So let's see how Mackey is going to shake out with some of these front runners. As did Hudek have a mistake of his own on pit entry? Let's take a look at here. This is trundling his way down into his pit stall, tries to hit his marks. He hit him. Okay, that could have been oh so close. I was looking through, I was like, don't tell me we have another front runner making that same mistake. And just to outline how big of a moment that is, as Jake Mackey has been able to cycle back up to the front of the field, but only has a 0.4 of a second gap between himself and Stephen Hudek, as Josh Shinsky making that run to come down pit lane. That pit lane time for Leo Dragata from line to line was 48.3 seconds. You compare that to Jake Mackey, who would cycle out to be back in the overall race lead. Once we get this taken care of, as that's Josh Shinsky with the slide. He hit his marks, though. That is the iRacing gods definitely giving him a bit of an edge there, as his teammate Dave Menino making that run through pit lane as well. But he compared Dragata's time of 48.3 compared to Mackey at 33.2. That is a huge difference. As we take a look at this moment for Shinsky, got spent a bit longer down pit lane, even with a shorter time in the box, but had this slide of a lifetime of pit entry. Holy cow.
You can see a lot of the drivers struggling. It is a concrete surface on all the actual pit lanes, while the road is asphalt. So when they get to that transition, it certainly affects the way that the car is gripping with the tires and the surface. And see a couple of them sliding. I do think Leo, I think he got lucky. His left front suspension wasn't too hurt, even with the contact to the wall. But certainly a detriment just taking the extra time having to get the car pushed back, get the tires back on it, and get him on his way. You can see he's falling all the way back to 6th, no draft help. And Jake Mackey, with having a clean pit stop, going all on his own, no mistakes, does find himself still as the leader, where I am quite surprised. I would have expected him to maybe have fallen back to 3rd or 4th after that rotation.
And that is a real kick in the shins for Dragata, but plenty of time left to go in this race to try and dust yourself off and get back up to the front of the field. Probably going to see, at the very least, one more run down pit lane between now and the checkered flag. But in all of this drama and craziness in this first pit cycle of this race here at Auto Club, Jake Mackey has been able to jump back up to the front of the field. Stephen Hudek slotted in P2, about a 10.5 back. Josh Shinsky also involved in that fight as well. Shinsky, the series admin here in the XMS IndyCar Championship Series, very, very quick driver in these Indy cars. He's quick, an Indiana native as well, currently slotted in 3rd in this race. The top running of those SRT esports drivers, his teammate Dave Menino and championship leader Dave Menino slotted down in P6, losing touch with that pack as well. Didn't talk about it too much, but as much as Dragata had a bad run through pit lane, Menino did as well, as he is running right behind Dragata. So those two going to be working together as pseudo teammates. Menino, this is not a very good race for him. I mentioned this a little bit earlier on. He skipped down the race at the Indy Oval, so this is his first oval race of the season, and the driver who has been just about unbreakable up to this point, there's some cracks forming here at Auto Clubber. We're just not talking about the ones on the racetrack.
Dave Menino, he was the last of the 8 drivers to come down pit lane and get his car serviced, and I think he took a more conservative route. I think he thought with all the issues he had, maybe he would still come out well within the front, but I think the real gun that we kind of missed on the Neil Weston had a great pit stop, got himself all the way up to 6th. He's now running 3rd. He's one of the 4 cars in the main pack now, and that's really what it's going to take to win the race, is no mistakes and make sure you stay part of that front draft. You can see those top 4 cars starting to pull away from Joshuah or Leo Dragata and Dave Menino, and they're right there. They can see him, but they've certainly got quite a challenge to try and regain 3 seconds on the top 4.
As less on by Leo Dragata saying the quickest lap of the race at a 32.8. He has been able to reel in these drivers up towards the front. Dragata is a driver that you can never really discount in these races. So I think we'll have to talk about him all the way through to the checkered flag, unless he has some sort of other extracurricular drama between now and the end of this race. But certainly whittling the laps away. Now coming to lap 50 with Jake Mackey in the 60 as your race leader, and Dragata saying another quick lap last time by to 32.714. That 118 car, despite the setback he found himself in, he's still quick, and he's now trying to get a move done on Josh Chinsky to jump his way back into the top 4. Looks like that momentum going to stall out for him on that inside. Not able to make those moves work down the backstretch after going for the dive down into 1 and 2. The bumps just don't roll out as Dragata skates a little bit up the track. Coming out of turn number 4, Dragata got maybe have to rethink how he goes about this overtake.
Yeah, and kind of almost I spoke too soon. You can see Leo Dragata and Dave Menino right there back into the fight. All top 6 drivers. Charlie Jose with his rough pit stop, he's certainly fallen off. He's going to have a hard time without any draft for this entire run, but top 6 are all right back in it. They're contenders. They're nice, evenly spaced. There's still just under 75 laps to go, so anybody in the top 6 right now has a chance to win the race. We're looking at one more pit stop. It's going to be a lot of fuel mileage. See if anybody can maybe get an extra lap, a little extra run, and put yourself in a position to be having a chance at the win come lap 125.
Yeah, just being in that position to have a chance is super vital in these races. You could have a quick car all the way up through to lap 124, but if you fall off right at the end, it's not going to matter at the end of the day. You won't get the points. You won't get any pats on the back. You're just going to be leaving that race head in your hands trying to figure out what exactly went wrong. We got the top 6, though, all covered by just about nothing at the front of the field. Charlie Hosea has dropped back. He's lost the draft, currently slotted in 7th, about 9 seconds off of these racers as well. So not looking like a night to remember if you're Charlie Hosea, as it looks like Hudek trying to make something work on that inside line. Jake Mackey, though, taking that defensive high side as he heads his way off through turn number 1 and 2. Looks like he's going to do the exact same thing all through 3 and 4. You think of ovals, you know, for road course fans, which I remember back when I was super obsessed of Formula 1. I was like, oh, ovals, they're stupid. All you do is just turn left. You may look at turn number 1 and 2 and turn number 3 and 4 around this racetrack and think, okay, they're exactly the same. No, these 2 sections of the track could not be any more different if you tried. And these Indy cars at top speed, not even dipping below 200 miles an hour, heading all through the turns, any small little change in wind direction, any small little change in temperature, any small little bumper crack or nudge in the racetrack that you can hit will completely alter the way that your race car is driving. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, completely different challenges for these drivers, and it changes with a blink of an eye as well.
Yeah, you can tell every oval is always different. They always have their certain characteristics, and an IndyCar certainly loves to highlight them. They just have such a sensitive suspension, so much power, so much difficulty to drive these cars, no power steering. You really have to wrestle them through every corner, every bump, every little bit of the way of the road, and it makes for really thrilling racing. It's very competitive. You see we've got the top 6 all separated within a second of each other, maybe second and a half, but they're right in a line. Anybody has a chance to make a move. They're certainly turning laps right now, but you're going to start seeing it dice up, and that's one thing maybe we're even forgetting to mention. But as the laps start to wind down, the side-by-side and the tire-to-tire competitiveness is going to certainly increase. You may find an incident, you may see a wreck. Charlie Jose is certainly not falling back too far. He's now only 8 seconds behind the main pack, so I think the main pack is actually slowed down a little bit the way they're trying to draft and maybe save a little bit of fuel through this run. So there's lots of different variables. Charlie Jose can be right back up in it with any one wrong move, one wrong spin. I mean, we saw Eduardo Lorente, thankfully nobody was coming on and they were able to allow the racetrack to stay green, but you see something like that happen now, I'm expecting those yellow flags to come out. We're going to re-rack them and see what happens from there.
Yeah, yellow at this point of the race, as much as the strategy content is huge, a yellow would really throw this, right? It would throw a lot of stuff in the air, and I think some of these racers would probably throw their hands up in the air thinking, okay, now how do I go about this race? It would change it immediately, and these drivers, I think there are some that are probably hoping for a yellow to come out because they feel like it may be able to help them out when it comes to strategy. Others, on the other hand, I think a yellow would probably be in their worst nightmare. So let's just see how things are going to shake out throughout the rest of this race. On lap 58, coming to 59 this time by Jake Mackey, is still leading it in front of Stephen Hudek, slotted in P2. Neil Weston runs at your podium presently. Josh Shinsky, though, I wanted to talk about this a little bit earlier on. The driver, the number 18, Josh Shinsky, still the top running SRT esports driver, right in front of his SRT teammate of Dave Menino. He won that race at Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. Now, granted, that race towards the end was a bit confusing. Had some drivers get struck by falling anvils, whether it be through pit lane mistakes, whether it be through pit lane speeding penalties, or respective connection issues. Shinsky was able to prevail at the end of that race. As much as he just lost a spot on his teammate, perfectly timed for me to talk about Josh Shinsky maybe being a force to be reckoned with in this race. He didn't win that race at Indy because of a fluke. He had a quick race car. He knows how to race these cars on the oval. And Dave Menino, to his own admission, hasn't really run a lot of ovals. In fact, I'm pretty sure he had to buy this track to compete in this week's race. So Menino, he's still just about as green as the engine cover is on his race car when it comes to oval racing. So Menino, as much as he may not be running in a good spot at the present moment, he's got a very quick teammate who I think is still one of my personal favorites to win.
Yeah, and he's having a really good run. He's right there in the top 6. I think we're seeing a lot of drivers play it very conservative right now. Nobody's too worried about whether they're first or second. I do think Jake Mackey is certainly trying to make a statement by leading as many laps as he can, and I don't know if that is an extra bonus point for most laps led, but he's certainly holding the front. Hudek, I think, is kind of letting Mackey know that he's right there on him, that he's certainly not running away from him as we see him in little groups of 2x2x2 going down the backstretch. So it'll be certainly interesting come to the end, but I think everybody in the top 6 right now is right where they want to be. They're all still thankfully with the chance. Nothing's gone too horribly wrong yet, and it's just a matter of seeing what the story tells in the second half of the race.
Yeah, what story will play out as we do rapidly approach upon the point where we will be halfway through this race. In fact, I think probably going to head it in about half a mile, 62.5 laps into this 125 lap long race. We're now officially past the halfway mark, I believe, and Jake Mackey is leading at the halfway point of this race. Stephen Hudek slotted in P2, still trying to make something work on the high side. I think he may be able to get it done as well as Mackey stalls out a little bit on that high side midway through the turn, and it looks like he will keep that momentum rolling. So Jake Mackey still going to remain in the race lead. These inside overtakes not really able to work. You get the good run midway through the turn, but on exit, you're just not able to get in. These drivers, they're not going to be the ones that try and push each other off, and you can't really do that in an IndyCar as well. Contact, wheel-to-wheel contact, side-to-side contact at terminal velocity in these race cars, there's one way that ends, and that is with a car up in the air and probably flipping about 5 times. So as much as it may be the right thing to do for yourself, these drivers are respectful enough whereby they're not going to go for the dive down the inside and just slide up in front or into the side of their competitor on the high side. As much as Stephen Hudek would probably help out his runs doing that if he's alongside trying to make something work on Mackey, that's just not something that he can really do in an IndyCar many, many times before something breaks.
Yeah, whether you see it go wrong, the problem with the side-by-side in these Indy cars a lot of times too, you find a little bit more lifting from the top 2 cars. The whole pack sort of slows from a draft, and then you do allow a chance for guys to kind of make a chance to run up front. Sort of keep things single file right now. You're able to keep a distance. So couple cars behind you may get a little run, but if they want to take it, next thing you know, they're getting toppled over by 5th and 6th place wanting that spot.
As we look at a fight, maybe gonna flare up involving Dave Menino, Neil Weston. Weston, he's on a pretty good charge as it stands at the present moment. We were talking about the driver of the number 6 car, stalled out behind Charlie Jose a little bit earlier on in this race, running in 7th, and it looks like that car has come alive ever since that pit cycle. Currently slotted in 4th, trying to make something work on Dave Menino. These drivers can't battle too hard though, because if they do lose touch of that front 2, then we're really going to see a different stage of this race where the drivers are broken up a bit and they are going to be dealing with some more and more drama as this race continues to develop. Can't really nail down who's going to be the driver to keep eyes on though, because Leo Dragata, as much as he's got a quick race car, not really able to get a move done on Josh Shinsky. I think the dirty air is just a bit too powerful on the front end of that 118 car. The wake affecting him too much through the turns and maybe using up the stuff in the early stages. So at this point in time, I think these drivers are probably going through their head and saying, you know what, no point of really risking it for the biscuit too early on. Let's just keep it smooth. Let's keep it calm, and let's make it to that final stint. And then we can really start to get these moves done.
Certainly a matter of just turning off laps. It's been a very quick race with only 38 minutes so far completed, and we're just now completing our 67th lap, working the 68th. So not a whole lot of time left in this race. So you see drivers are kind of waiting. I'm expecting to see final pit stops in about 17 laps from now. So that'll really sort of shake things up, see if we have any more issues on pit road through there, and then we'll be able to kind of determine who the final players are coming to the final lap.
Yeah, figure out who's going to be the force to be reckoned with at the end of this race. I have a feeling of the drivers that we see right now, probably going to see 3 break away and be the ones battling for the win right towards the end of this race. I don't know why, it's just a hunch. There's certain things that these drivers have in their control and other things that they don't. And hopefully to those 3 that I've got in my head right now is the ones who may be involved in a battle. Hopefully the commentators' jinx will not come down and strike them, as we're on lap 69 of this 125 lap long race. Mackey still leads in front of Hudek. 2 drivers again looking with something to prove, as Hudek gonna look to try and maybe get a move down the not too far off future. He looked for a move down the inside, but yet again stalls that midway through the turn. Jake Mackey is positioning his car exactly where he needs to, which is a beautiful thing to see from your race leader.
Yeah, he's certainly looked very stout the entire race. He's been very commanding of the lead. Hudek certainly hasn't let him run away though, so I don't think he's maybe as strong as it might appear with as many laps led as he's had, and see him leading down the backstretch right now. They're all right on him, so I'm sure he's feeling comfortable in the lead. You do kind of get to a point where he leads so much that you kind of wait for it to all go wrong too. So it's certainly building up to be a really good finish. I'd expect a side-by-side finish personally.
Yeah, we may end up having a photo finish. We may end up having a 3-wide photo finish. Who knows? We still have a lot of loose ends to tie around right towards the end of this race. 40 minutes in, 71 laps on the board. As skating out a little bit is Steven Hudek. That's the first time we've really seen that number 44 car and have the front end of that race car just ship him up the track. Dave Menino looking to get close to him right now. So Menino and Hudek running P2 and P3. We talked about this right before the race, how those 2 are the ones battling for that championship. Dave Menino, heading into his first oval race of this season, was maybe looking for damage control. But as it stands presently, he may find himself in a good spot to finish in front of Steven Hudek. Still has some opportunities to get a move done and needs to keep it clean between now and the end of this race. But honestly, Dave Menino finds himself in a pretty alright position coming into the final 50 laps.
He's worked himself up to 3rd. He started to show this run. He's definitely got more speed in the late run car than he does in the early run. It starts to get a little light and he starts to find the power in it. And he's definitely setting himself up. I think he wants to make sure he's in a good position to make this final pit stop.
So once we start to see these racers come down pit lane in the not too far off future, this race is really going to flare up. For now though, we're on lap 73 of this 125 lap long race. Jake Mackey is your race leader, Steven Hudek in second, Dave Menino rounding out your top 3 in the number 3 car. That's how it shakes out at the present moment. These drivers firmly in fuel saving, firmly in this stint where they just want to make it to the end. So with all that being said, we're going to take a quick commercial break here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, and we'll be back with some pit stops and the
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. Whether you're just looking to have fun, train for race day, or become a serious esports competitor, Ricmotech has you covered. Hundreds of name brand parts. Support from experts that love sim racing. Trusted by the pros. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best-trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org. The search is over. The most comprehensive league scoring solution is here, with the ability for multi-level championships, custom incident tracking, post-race time penalties, support for heats, drop weeks display, multi-car team scoring, advanced web widgets, rookie championships, a custom paint system, and load those results in seconds. Visit extremescoring.info today.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
Back again here on Slow Motion Broadcasting for tonight's coverage of round number 6 of the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series. Coming back in perfect time, we have got some pit stops that have already gone on. Jake Mackey came into the pits a couple of laps ago, and he spent 10.1 seconds down in his pit stall and 44 seconds down pit lane. So a little bit on the slow end from Mackey as we take a look at his pit entry here in that number 60 car. Looks like he was rather generous on that pit limiter, which can be a good thing. Don't want to pick up a pit lane speed limit penalty right at the end of this race, but Mackey may be losing a bit of time through pit lane, but he was the first to come down pit lane. Charles Hosea has joined him in the 100 car, albeit I think he is going to be retiring from this race after some drama in the early stages. Spent 50 seconds down pit lane, so something clearly awry with that 100 cars. I will actually amend that statement. He has rejoined this race, albeit is a couple of laps down at the present moment. But Jake Mackey making that call to come down pit lane here, Kennan. Now this race starts to flare up.
Starting to see a strategy kind of take effect. You're seeing that's quite a long run, looking at 47 laps. I don't think fuel should be an issue for any sort of bit of the run, but Jake Mackey certainly establishing he's going to be the first to pit both times and see where it sort of plays out. I know a lot of the top 4 right now did have trouble with their pit stops, whether it was a little fast, a little slide, so they've kind of got to clean that up on this final pit stop. This is really the money stop, as they call it. So it'll be interesting to see how things sort of tick through. We may see another 3 or 4 laps where drivers start to hit, but I think now that Mackey's kind of pulled the plug, I think every driver's sort of playing in right now when they're coming down pit lane.
Yeah, and in all of that drama at the front of the field, Stephen Hudek has been able to jump into the race lead, but Dave Menino looking to get something to work on the high side, heading down into 3 and 4. Here comes that 3 car of Dave Menino. We were thinking that this was going to be a lame duck race for him. He didn't want to try and force this issue in his first ever race with these Indy cars at this track. No. He's in it to win, and he's trying to get something to work around the outside of Hudek, which based off the amount of times we've seen drivers go for moves on the inside and they hadn't worked, this may be the good move from Menino, not having that midway speed through the turn Not going to work out too well from that time by. But Leo Dragata has made his entry into the pits on the 118 as Menino yet again looking for the high side all through 3 and 4. Let's see who will be the next driver to make that call to come into the pits. Don't believe our top 4 will decide that now is the time to pit. Dragata still stopped in his pit stall. I don't believe he had the same mess up that he had a little bit earlier on. We'll see how long he spent in the pit lane. Looking through 44.3 seconds down pit lane and 11.0 stopped in his pit stall. So that's how it works out for Dragata, much quicker than it was during the first run, as he's going to exit out a little bit farther back of Jake Mackey. Still, though, Dragata on the hard charge after that mistake a little bit earlier on. He has brought himself back in that discussion.
Yeah, you saw Dragata get passed by Mackey there in 1 and 2. A little bit of a separation. It could be beneficial for both of them to maybe kind of mind the gap and get things back together and make sure they keep their pace up as a 2-car group. We're looking at Steven Hudek now. The race leader is going to come down on pit road. Hopefully no stops. The crew is ready to service the car. Brings it all the way down, rides the pit limiter. You can see 5,700 RPMs in first gear. Just waiting to try and slide it. You see, starts gently turning it in. This is really the move to see how everything settles out. It all depends on where Steven Hudek comes out. He gets in nice and clean. He's going to have a really good stop. He gets out, back out on the course okay. I think everything's looking pretty good for him right now.
As Hudek out and away, 10 seconds stopped in the pit stall, 43 seconds down pit lane, which is much quicker than Mackey and Dragata. So let's see how this is going to work out for Hudek. I believe he will slip back in tow of Mackey, who has that run, and he is going to blow his doors off down the back straightaway. So it's Hudek slotting in what, as it stands presently, would be a net P2 once we have all these pit stops shaking out and keeping an eye. Don't believe he picked up a penalty and all of that, so that is clean for these racers. Dragata may be going to try and look for a move on the 44 of Hudek as well. We ride on board with the driver of the 118 car, heading his way through into turn number 1 and 2 in a couple of moments' time. Still in tow there as well. Neil Weston, though, he's made that call to come into the pits in the 6. It's now just Dave Menino and Josh Shinsky, our P1 and P2 racers, yet to come into the pits for the final time in this race.
You can see Hudek and Dragata are going to start working together. I expect them to maybe cut a little bit down on the distance Jake Mackey has with them, as we're seeing Neil Weston come down to the pit stop. Now Dave Menino is coming down, and everybody looks like they're starting to finally fully cycle through. Neil Weston with a pretty good stop, 10.3 seconds, a little slower than the couple in front of him, but everybody looking to get in and get out pretty clear this second time around on pit stops. So I'm expecting we'll have a good pack here come the end of it. Everybody should sort of come back all together as one big pack for the final last 35 laps.
As here's Dave Menino coming down pit lane right now. Josh Shinsky, he is the final driver yet to make that run through the pits. And look at that, Menino, 8.6 seconds down pit lane. That is a very quick stop for the driver of the number 3 car. He's been able to jump into good spots throughout this season just because of a good run down pit lane. Not a lot quicker than these drivers. In fact, spent about 9/10 of a second more down pit lane than Steven Hudek did, and only 3/10 of a second less than Jake Mackey, despite the fact he spent 1.4 seconds less down in the pit stall. As Josh Shinsky, Menino's teammate, has made that call to come into the pits. It's on lap 88 of this 125 lap long race. Here is your race leader, the number 18 of Shinsky. This will give the race lead back to Jake Mackey, and now we will be able to think who's going to be set up perfectly for the final 36 laps of this race.
It's certainly going to depend. Shinsky looks like he got into pit road pretty good. I expect him to have a nice pit stop. If he can come out and find himself right in the middle of the field, I think this is where you're going to start seeing the draft take a little effect. The pace of the pack will actually slow down with the more racing that they have side by side, but now it's kind of the opportunity where we're going to have to see drivers sort of see what they've got. As much wing as you may have let out of the thing, you've got to get the car as fast as it can. Right now is the time you need to be the absolute fastest on track and get away.
So there's Josh Shinsky exiting the pits right now. It looks like he will not be involved in that front pack fight. Neither, though, will be Dave Menino. Neil Weston also involved in this as well. Maybe got to try and split the 2 SRT Esports drivers and maybe even get moves done on the both of them on the inside, heading his way out through 3 and 4. Looks like Neil Weston will be able to leap in front of the both of them. So that'll be P4 for the driver, the number 6. But this is rather fascinating, Kennan. We have now got a broken up pack. It was 6 6 cars covered by nothing, we can now swap that to be 2 packs of 3. But will we see the likes of Chinsky, Weston, and Menino try and work together to close up that gap between themselves and Mackey? It'll be 2.7 seconds that they do have to claim, but we've seen bigger comebacks already in this race. So who knows? If these drivers decide to work together as pseudo teammates, we may end up seeing that 6-car battle flare up yet again. Do you think that'll happen though, Kennan?
Well, that second pack does have 2 teammates, you're right. So I do expect them to work together. They know that their goal is to try and win the race, not finish 4th and 5th. So you're going to see that a little bit. A lot of it's going to come to how the top 3 race. As the laps start winding down, you're going to see the top 3 trading positions more and more, and that's going to open up the door for Chinsky, Menino, and Neil Weston to all kind of bring it back. You can see they've actually gained about 3, almost 4 tenths, I believe, just in this lap and closing on the field. So depending on who can get the better run, get nice draft, get good speed for your group of 3, it may still be 6 cars coming to decide it by the time we get to the end of this race.
Yeah, if it is a 6-car battle right towards the end, it's going to be intense, but I'm not going to say that I called this. But when I said earlier on that I think we were only going to have 3 cars battling for the win, look what we've got right now. We've got Jake Mackey, Steven Hudek, and Leo Dragata all covered by about a half a second, and then you have to go back by over 2 to find Dave Menino slotted in 4th at the present moment. This is a very good lifeline that has been thrown Steven Hudek's way. I talked about this right after the opportunity we had to have a chat with him right after that qualifying session earlier on where we grabbed the pole for this race. I mentioned that if there was any time to strike for Hudek, it was now. That iron is hot, and Hudek needs to get some good results in the final 3 races of this season if he wants to try and be a thorn in the side to Dave Menino for that driver's championship. Looking good for him right now. If these spots hold on to it right now, Hudek would be able to take a rather significant bite out of that gap to himself and Menino in the points, but I think Hudek wants more. In an ideal world for him, he would be able to see Menino drop behind both his teammate and Neil Weston, and maybe even Charlie Hosea for that matter, and have him grab the win. That would be a dream scenario for Hudek, obviously not wishing ill will upon his championship rival, but at the same time, they're contending for a championship. This is the first ever season of this series, so you want to be able to mark your name in the history books as being the first, but I don't think it's going to be that straightforward. It is now 1.2 seconds between Leo Dragata in 3rd and Josh Chinsky in 4th. That gap is closing, and it's closing quick.
Yeah, they're absolutely flying around, pulling almost another second over the last 2 laps. Fall back a little bit there, 1.7 as Chinsky makes a pass on Menino. I think they're probably trying to have to situate a little bit of the draft and the momentum runs out at their with the kind of speed they've been having. But you can see the 2 teammates are working great, and Neil Weston is more than happy to ride along with that draft and get himself back into a chance to make a chance for the win coming here. Looking at, 30 laps to go, 29 laps to go, 1.3 seconds is you're pretty much right back in the draft at this point. It's just a matter of time before they're right back all together nice and tight.
Yeah, we are definitely getting up to that. Chinsky, he's getting into the draft right now. So that 1 second gap, yep, there we can see it dropping down, dropping down, dropping down. It's now going to be a 5-car battle for this race when I think Neil Weston has lost touch of these 2 a little bit. I think that's part of the reason why they were able to reel in these front 3. Once Neil Weston, who was battling tooth and nail with those racers, dropped out of that fight, then we saw that gap basically disappear in the matter of about 5 laps. Now on lap 97, it's a 5-car battle, and Dave Menino just set the fast lap of the race last time by, so clearly the driver of the number 3 car, he's got some pace to win this race even stronger now than he was a little bit earlier on. These front 5 can't really discredit any of them winning well. We can't even discredit Neil Weston as he's involved in this battle too now.
And the one thing we haven't really highlighted too much is really the ability to pass in these cars. We've seen several times where drivers are trying to utilize the bottom line and make a run through the corner, and you're finding the lead car is taking the outside line. And
Dragata! Yellow coming out on lap 98 as Dragata loses it, heading his way through 1 and 2, and the race that was looking oh so good for him got disrupted with a bad pit stop, and looks like it comes to an end here. There's some damage on that race car. He can't even keep it up and rolling in a straight line. If it were me, I would tow Leo. That rear end is cooked. There's no way you can get that car repaired between now and the end. There you can see a little bit of left hand down to that steering wheel. Leo Dragata wrecking out of this race in spectacular fashion. He's got to bring that car back down to pit lane. It is the first caution of this race, coming just a few moments before we were set to hit lap 100. And my, oh my, that changes everything.
Yeah, it certainly does. You're going to see a lot of the drivers, I don't know whether they want to stop and add fuel to the car and add weight. You see Dragata just losing it all on their own. I'm sure they had the rear wing as low as they could go, and the weight jacker was probably about as loose as you could get it right there, and maybe just a tick too much, but just hits the bump, loses it a little, try and correct it with the steering wheel, but just not enough. The rear end goes around, and he's into the wall, does a pretty good pancake to it. I'd be surprised to see if he can continue.
Yeah, I don't believe we'll be able to see Leo Dragata continue on throughout this race. That small little hit of the wall, that's going to give him suspension damage, and that's going to take him out of contention. Lost it as he hit the apron, spins around like a top, and smacks the outside wall coming out of turn number 2. But in all of this, we've got some pit stops for most of the field. Neil Weston in the 6th, one of the last drivers to come down pit lane. He stayed out. That's big. With 25 laps left to go in this race, all of them can make it to the end, and they will certainly be able to make it to the end with this run through the pit lane. But what this will do for some of these racers, if they miss their pit marks, they're going to be done. They're going to be screwed. Leo Dragata, he's now called it a night, as Steven Hudek, oh, and that's an overshoot there from, that's Josh Shinsky in the number 18 car. Saw him have to back up a little bit. Not going to help out his case at all. Jake Mackey going to exit out with the lead of the drivers who came down pit lane. Steven Hudek going to be slotted in right behind Shinsky. As much as he lost out on a little bit of time there, he will be slotted in 4th overall with Mananoa's teammate right behind Charlie Hosea. He's made the call to come down into the pits. Not sure if he'll get a wave around to get his lead lap back, but Neil Weston will be a race leader come time for the restart in the not too far off future.
And Neil Weston, he's certainly been right there with the front pack the entire time, sitting 5th place, 6th place, almost the entire race. We've talked about him multiple times, but he's now put himself right in the catbird seat coming to the final 24 lap, maybe 23 laps by the time we get this race going back green. And he's certainly going to have the fresh air, the lead. It's all in his hands now, so put himself in a fantastic position. Team just gave him a fantastic pit stop as well, not losing any positions on pit road here under caution. So certainly a driver to be keeping an eye out. I know Jake Mackey's not happy to be restarting this race in 2nd, so we're really looking at crunch time now, and the race is certainly on with no worries about fuel or tires.
No worries about fuel, no worries about your handling, unless you're Neil Weston at the front of this field. You can see he spent a lot longer down pit lane compared to some of his rivals last time by, of course, having to take less fuel they did. So not too representative. Neil Weston, though, even when it came to that previous pit cycle that came before this one, he was a bit on the longer end when it came to those stops. So I think Neil Weston is certainly going to be good on fuel come time for the end of this race. But how are those tires going to be holding up towards the end of this? Will he have the grip underneath him? Will he be able to make it to the end and still have the pace to contend for a front-running spot? These track conditions are a lot cooler now than they were a matter of about an hour ago. 112 degrees Fahrenheit. Still rather burning hot, but nowhere near as hot as it was earlier on. So Neil Weston, he may have a fighting chance here.
Yeah, we're certainly looking at a cooler track. I know I mentioned it earlier. 5-degree difference is quite a significant difference in a day's difference in track temperature from start to finish in a race. Neil Weston certainly got a chance. It's going to be his first time really having full, clean, open air of the pack. Everybody's tire wear, I don't see that as too substantial. What I do see is just like we saw Leo lose, how are you adjusting the roll bars? How are you adjusting the weight checkers? Are you making sure you're staying ahead of where the track's going, or are you falling behind? And then that's when you see a mistake, you see the car come around. So he's got himself all now. He's fresh. He's back in line with everybody. They're all on kind of an equal plating again coming in the last 25 laps. And it's certainly his opportunity to take it. I think he's got just as good a shot as anybody. As you see the pace cars coming down, we're getting ready to restart.
Here for the first restart of the night, single file as Neil Weston leads us back to green here with less than 25 laps left to go at Auto Club. He's going to lead us off heading down into turn number 1. That's going to be a Jake Mackey slotted in P2. Steven Hudek, he's currently running in 30. He's got the 2 SRT Esports teammates of Josh Shinsky and Dave Menino running right behind. Menino, he's the championship leader coming into this race. Steven Hudek, though, really the only driver that can give the challenge to the 3, as here comes Jake Mackey to jump into the race lead. Steven Hudek gonna look to follow him. It's a matter of feet between the back of Hudek and the front of Neil Weston's car. And look at the number 18 of Chinsky, gonna try to make it 3 wide right against the wall as he heads his way down into turn number 1 and to that high side. The good spot to get a move as Hudek gonna make a 3 wide with Mackey as well. Mackey in the 60 car gonna be in the middle. It looked like a big moment for Neil West as he headed his way off through turn number 1 and 2, as here comes Josh Shinsky on the inside, down into 3 and 4. The dive from the 18 gets it done on Hudek. Gonna jump into the race lead as Mackey on the high side gets hung out to dry, drops down a little bit. Now Dave Menino gonna look to get a move done on him as well. It's side-by-side racing between those two, and side-by-side between Shinsky and Hudek, battling for the race lead as they head their way off into 1 and 2.
Mackey tried to cut the door off on Chinsky, and Chinsky said, no thank you, I'll just go to the bottom, and decides to go right underneath him, and Steven Hudek takes the lead, puts himself right in the catbird seat. His partner Dave Menino is also looking very fast. I think he wants to get by Mackey right now too.
Let's see if teamwork is going to make the dream work for those two black, white, and green SRT esports competitors. The 3 of Menino involved in that championship battle. The 18 of Chinsky, the series admin, looking to get his 2nd win of the season and have a sweep of the oval races thus far. He goes for the middle, down into turn number 1 and 2. Got Steven Hudek on his inside, had Jake Mackey on the outside, but Mackey gonna back out of it. He's now gonna try and look to get a good exit on that inside line. Maybe gotta move back on Chinsky as Chinsky looking to clear Hudek on the inside. Hudek is on the inside, trying to clear him on the outside. Off into 3 and 4, not close enough as that's Mackey looking to get a move done on him as well. Dave Menino maybe got to jump into a good spot as well. Menino, a very talented racer in this series, a championship leader for a good reason, doesn't have a lot of experience on the oval, but the green driver in the green race car looking to grab that checkered flag at the end of this race and have some green to talk about at the end of it all as well. Let's see what he'll be able to do. Currently slotted in 4th right behind his teammates. It's still 3 cars battling tooth and nail, and side by side between Hudek and Mackey. Looked like Chinsky was briefly gonna make it 3 wide, but not close enough. We're into the final 20 laps of this race as that's Mackey spinning into the infield. And he keeps it going in a straight line, goes for a wild ride all through the grass. Gonna make sure that he doesn't spin it on rejoining the track. He kept it going in a straight line. Gonna bring some grass on, but the green flag remains. But that's Mackey, the dominant driver in this race, taking himself out.
Certainly a very thrilling moment there for Mackey. Just comes right out of the corner, doesn't need any help. I don't know if he hit a bump. It looked like he was already really through the corner, but he manages to do an incredible save and keeps it out of the wall, drives it through the grass. Certainly lost a lot of time. He's about 7-8 seconds behind the pack now, but that was certainly a phenomenal move to not end the race as we see him again from above, high in the sky, going through, almost goes through victory lane there and just takes out a lot of grass, no suspension damage. He'll be able to continue. We never know what could happen in these last 17 laps. There's certainly a lot of racing going on now, and another incident could certainly happen and get him right back in this race.
But man, oh man, that is a heartbreaker for Jake Mackey. I think what happened there, it was a mix of hitting a bump coming out of the turn, hitting a different seam of the asphalt, and probably a little bit of aerodynamic trickery coming off the back of the number 44 car of Steven Hudek. So unfortunate to have that happen to him right at the end of this race, but in all of it, it has flared up this pack at the front of the field. Dave Menino, Neil Weston, they're now battling tooth and nail for 3rd as Hudek and Shinsky battle for the race lead a little bit farther up the road. Hudek running that inside line, hugging close to the apron. Chinsky looking to rip it on the high side as here comes the 3 of Dave Menino. Fantastic run on Neil Weston, who restarted this race at the front. That 6 car looks like he's driving a little bit sour, doesn't have the speed on the long run, so probably hoping for another yellow to come out. But considering how broken up it is, it's going to have to be a single car mistake or some big amount of drama to have that happen and fall into the hands of Neil Weston. But Hudek and Chinsky, they're still battling to the nail. Neil Weston, I think he's shaking off the challenge from Dave Menino like a bad case of the fleas. He's going to look to try and jump and get involved in that battle as Chinsky and Hudek yet again side by side.
You see side by side all the way down into turn 1. Chinsky trying the outside line. Hudek has been making the inside line work though. He's found a way to get the run, but I think Chinsky might have gotten it to stick there. a good bit of momentum, but now he's going to fall back in line, use the draft down the backstretch. Menino and Neil Weston both kind of sitting there waiting for anything to happen. This race is only going to get tighter and tighter, but we're kind of starting to see where every driver throughout the first 111 laps, they've learned the runs, they've learned what their car has. They're trying to find a way to utilize it. A lot of it's momentum, and you can't just make it all come in one turn. It takes multiple laps to really take a build, and Shinsky back to the outside. He's certainly driving aggressive. He doesn't want to let this lead slip away while he has a chance to take it.
Steven Hudek still holding on to the lead. Josh Shinsky right there within striking distance. And Dave Menino certainly got involved in this battle as well. I think Weston has hit that point where he's going to start to drop back. He's got Charlie Hosea in that number 100 car right involved in that battle as well. Charlie Hosea 1 lap down, so not going to be a big factor at the end of this race. So it's going to be close. It's going to be tight between all of these racers. Shinsky on the high side, Hudek on the inside, down into turn number 1 and 2. Dave Menino gonna look to maybe follow his teammate through if he can get this move done. Still, look at the lap times that these drivers have been setting. Super close. And look at that game of chasing down to the apron, coming out of 1 and 2. Hudek trying to find any trick in the book to break that draft as we get to the final 10 laps of this race.
Shinsky keeps trying to go to the high side. He may end up getting himself passed in turn 1 by Menino. I think Hudek's really proven the inside line to be the strongest right now. If he wants to get by and take the lead, he's going to have to somehow do it by going to the inside. The high line's just a little too long of a way around. The cars aren't losing enough speed with the way the track's cooled off that you see Menino now in second. Now it's his chance. Maybe he can give Steven Hudek a little bit of a fight going into 3.
Yeah, will he take that challenge? Will he take that opportunity? Menino, he's looking to get a statement win here at Auto Club after missing out on the previous oval that we've had thus far this season at Indy. He wants to win it here at Auto Club, and maybe this is the move to get it done. On the outside line, down into 1 and 2. Hudek looking to hold his own. Menino saying another quick lap last time by, not quicker than his best, but still very fast is Menino. He's got the assistance from his teammate of Shinsky right behind, who's actually going to make it 3 wide down into turn number 3. That's Shinsky going for the dive. Menino going to drop back in tow. These two going to work to try and work together as shake and bake and try and rattle the cage of Steven Hudek. They're close. They're fanning out. They're trying to find any way in the book to get past the 44 car. But Hudek, he's been the driver who's been running behind Jake Mackey throughout a vast majority of this race. He learned where to position his car to make sure that your rivals can't get a move done on you. So Hudek, he learned those lessons, and now he's trying to learn them out himself. So let's see how it works out. As Shinsky, did he hit the wall there heading into turn number 3? Could see some puffs of smoke. Whoa!
No, he didn't touch wall, but they're getting very close. The racing's getting tighter and tighter. I think Shinsky's kind of learning, and he will actually lead that lap across the line, albeit I think Hudek is still in the advantageous position. And they're 3 wide again. Menino and Shinsky are definitely not proven to be teammates here as we're winding down the end of this race. They're full out going for the victory, and they're diving 3 wide again down the backstretch.
Oh, as you can see, that close quarters call between the front of Josh Shinsky's race car and the back of Steven Hudek's. If it was a couple of more feet, that would have been a big crash heading down through the tri-oval. It's still a big battle, though. 3 wide as they cross the line. I'm not sure who led at that lap. I think it may have been Shinsky as he's in the middle trying to make it work on Hudek. Dave Menino still looking to get something to work as well. Was the quickest of those 3 racers last time by, but Neil Weston was actually quicker than those 3 at a 33.0. Not sure if he's going to get involved in this battle. He's 9/10 of a second back. He'll have to hope for a miracle right towards the end of this race to try and make something work. Dave Menino there still close as Shinsky scraping up. He nearly hit the wall as they headed their way through turn number 4. Shinsky, that car is on or off. He's either really quick or he's starting to struggle. I think we're starting to see those struggles become a bit more of a common occurrence for the 18.
Yeah, I think that was actually more of an incident on Steven Hudek. He had to lift a little bit going into 3, decided to let Menino by. I think he's trying to play to have the draft. I think he found himself in a little bit of an understeer situation and almost had contact with Shinsky. Shinsky had to go to the right to avoid the contact. I think everybody got through clean, no touching, but it's certainly coming down to the wire, and you see just how close everything is. Hudek pulling back to the outside to try and take Menino for the lead. I think this is certainly going to be a drag race out of 4 to the line to see who wins this race.
Yeah, if that coming across the line that we saw a couple of laps ago is a preview of what to see at the end of this race, man, I'm not sure if my vocal cords will be able to take it. I'm not sure if these drivers' hearts will be able to take it. Hudek and Menino side by side through the backstretch. Joshinsky looking to get a move done on his teammates as well. Menino still with that good run on the inside. This is the first time I've really been able to see that inside workout. I think Steven Hudek not really able to work that high side too well. So once he clears these drivers, if he can get that done, I think we're going to see Hudek maybe try and make something work on that inside line, because I don't think he has the confidence on the high side, at least compared to Menino, who's just able to walk the dog on him. And there we can see swapping to the inside line goes Hudek in the 44, coming right towards the end of this race. We're getting into crunch time. These drivers are banging through the gears, heading their way around this racetrack at a steady click of 224 down the backstretch, off into 3 and 4. It's going to be a high, quickly paced race all the way to the end, and these drivers are going to treat us to a show. Is it 3 wide? It is 3 wide down into turn number 1 and 2, not giving us a single point to rest right towards the end of this race. It's a 2 SRT teammates trying to work the shake and bake on the 44 of Hudek, but will he be able to withstand the pressure, withstand the heat, and hold it off? This is a battle with championship implications as well. Steven Hudek and Dave Menino, our 2 main championship rivals when it comes to that driver's championship discussion. Shinsky, Menino's teammate, I wonder how much he's going to try and force this issue as well. Certainly teammate rules not going to play too big of a factor right towards the end of this race, but if you're Josh Shinsky, I think I would probably lay back, let these 2 battle hard, and hey, if they come to blows, you'll be in that catbird position to blow their doors off and take the win. Coming to 2 to go this time by, and it's Hudek and Menino side by side down the backstretch, off into 3 and 4. Hudek gonna ship it off on the inside.
Yeah, you can see Chinsky took it a little bit easier there on Menino that lap. You can see even Menino looking outside. A lot of this, they're really trying to time it. As long as they're leading the lap, Menino did get him to the line. That's really what's going to matter. They've taken 2 to go now, and it's all going to come down to who can hit that line first coming out of 4. And you see how everybody's trying to set them up. Hudek really in a disadvantageous position driving on the inside line right now. He's got to find a way to get to the outside line. He's fighting against 2 teammates. You know they want to see one of their cars get to victory lane. This is going to prove really thrilling. And here you see them almost 3 wide. They're utilizing the outside line, the SRT group. So coming to the white flag, this is going to really be down to everything right here. What run do you have? What do you know? You can see it's 2v1 as we take the white flag.
Oh, and they were nearly 3 wide yet again, down into turn number 1 for the last time in this race. The white flag in the air, 1 more lap of racing action, and it's 3 drivers with less than 2 miles now to try and settle their differences and figure out who's going to win this race. They're being and banging and roughing each other up down the backstretch. That's a fight involving the 18 and the 44. The 44, that's going to be Steven Hudek leading him coming out of the final turn. Menino go look for a move on the outside. It's a photo finish at the end of this race. And winning it all right at the very end is going to be Dave Menino by 0.008 of a second. Holy cow.
He tried everything he could. You could see he was lining up that kind of move to make on the outside. Hudek really had a fantastic 3 and 4. He took it to the apron. I thought he was going to get there. That is just absolutely thrilling. That's everything IndyCar racing is about right there. Close finishes, 3 cars all within a hand cover of each other coming to the line. What a finish.
What a race that we just had here at Auto Club, and look at that 3 wide photo finish right to the end. Steven Hudek tried to do what he did in qualifying and dump his car down into the apron. Didn't work. He just lost out on a bit too much of a run coming out of that turn. You can see he got a little bit sideways. That's what lost it for him. Had a bit of a sideways snap coming out of turn number 4, sacrificed that run to the line, and Dave Menino just had that speed. Look at that. That was about 50 feet after the line. Imagine how it was right before then. That is insane. iRacing marking it as 100th of a second, 10,000ths of a second, after over an hour of racing action here from round number 6 of the Xtreme Motorsports INDYCAR Championship Series. What a race here at Auto Club. And you know what? As much as he's going to be kicking himself after that mistake, kudos to Leo Dragata, because if that yellow didn't come out, who knows how the race would have been, but either way, we wouldn't have had this 3 wide photo finish right to the end. that's going to end up hopefully on the iRacing Top 10 highlights, because that is absolutely, you can get closer to that, but I don't think those drivers would have been able to get closer than that if you gave them 100 opportunities.
That's about, and we gave them 125 today, and we saw it lap after lap. The side-by-side racing got a little unsettling there in the middle of the race, a lot of little lap turning, but that is the kind of finish everybody was building for. Everybody knew if you wanted to win the race, it was going to take that kind of move to get the checkered flag. And you can see it was just pulled off with perfection, with hardly an inch to spare going to the finish line. That's just fantastic win for Dave Menino. So happy for him, his family, everybody down in that crew. I know the SRT, they work hard on those cars. That's just a really, really rewarding finish. And all of us fans up here, even us commentating in the press booth, cannot be more thrilled than to watch that.
And Dave Menino grabbing his 4th win this season, his 4th win in 6 races. And as much as we were thinking that it was going to be Stephen Hudek's day with the speed that Menino showed a little bit earlier on, with that win, I'm not going to say anything when it comes to finality in the championship, but that Dave Menino just did himself a whole lot of favors heading into the final 2 races of this season. So Menino, it may be his 4th win this season, but I think the champagne may never taste sweeter than this season. That was absolutely fantastic from Menino. Absolutely fantastic from all 3 of those racers. It was a brilliant finish all the way through to the end, battling tooth and nail from the drop of the green flag all the way through to the fall of the checkered. Incredible stuff here for round number 6 of the XMS INDYCAR Championship Series at Fontana. And credit where credit is due to Menino. He wins it all, and I think we're going to take a look at some donuts from the driver of the number 3 car. Some very well-earned donuts from him. And you know, Kennan, we were talking a lot throughout this race about how Menino had to do well here, how Hudek had to do well here. It was a race that had huge importance when it came to that championship, and Menino was able to hold on.
It was, and it certainly highlighted the top 2 drivers we have in the Porsche Championship. Were the top 2 drivers today. They really, cream of the crop always seems to shine by the end of these long oval races, and they prove they're here, they mean business. I think we've got a really interesting fight for the rest of the way to the championship.
And with 2 more races left to go, it is going to be Dave Menino, hoping not to have a moment like he had there in his celebratory donuts on the backstretch. He's going to hope to keep it out of the wall for the next 2 races of this season. But before we think about the end of this season, let's take a look at the finishing order at the end of this race. And what a battle it was, from the drop of the green all the way through to the fall of the checkered. But the winner of the fight is Dave Menino. He wins it with 0.010 seconds, the gap between himself and Stephen Hudek. That was the gap between those two after 1 hour and 14 minutes of racing action. To be a bit more precise, Dave Menino crossed the line with 1 hour, 14 minutes, 8 seconds, .604, and it all came down to a matter of 1/100th of a second at the end of it all. Right at the line. You can't get closer to that. I don't think these drivers would be able to replicate that if you gave them 100 opportunities and $1 million if they could do it. So that's how it looks for Menino. He wins it in front of Hudek. Josh Shinsky rounds out your podium in 3rd, and he only finished about 0.04 of a second behind Menino either. So we talked about how close it was between Menino and Hudek. Hello. Hudek and Shinsky, that wasn't a lot between those racers as well. The gap between Shinsky and Neil Weston in P3 and P4 looks like a vast yawning chasm compared to those podium runners, but Weston finishes in 4th. Mackey finishes in P5, a heartbreaking mistake towards the end of this race for him. Took him out of what could have been a victory and what certainly was going to be a surefire chance at doing well in this race. Still finishes in P5, but certainly a bit of a sour taste in the mouth of the driver of the number 60 car. Charlie Hosea ran into some difficulties a little bit earlier on. He ends up 1 lap down. Leo Dragata got involved in an incident right before lap 100, heading his way through turn number 2, brought out the yellow and takes him out of this race. He's classed in P7, 27 laps down, with Eduardo Lorente, who was involved in some early race drama, ending up 104 laps down, your last place classed car at the end of this race here at Fontana tonight. But with all that being said, Kennan, we've got some drivers waiting up there in the interview waiting area, and I'm going to start by giving you the opportunity to have a chance. Actually, no, I think I'll start off by having a chat with our P3 finisher, Mr. Joshua Chinsky. Series admin as well, and podium finisher here at Fontana. Josh, welcome into the commentary booth. Well done on that P3. I want to ask you about how it was being involved in that battle right towards the end of this race, because holy cow, that was fantastic from our perspective.
Oh, it was fantastic. Honestly, that entire last stint after the green flag was really just racking my brain with strategy, trying to figure out what I was going to do. I knew I just had to be in second or third place on the last lap and just have to time my run right. And I'd done it about 10 laps earlier, of where Steven had stayed low, Dave went up top, and I got the run and just threaded the needle right in between them, and I hit the finish line first, but just couldn't replicate it. And Dave was doing a great job those last couple laps of sliding up the track and taking the air off my front wing. So kudos to him. Fantastic win by Dave. Yeah, overall, just some awesome racing. That's one of the reasons why Auto Club is probably one of my all-time favorite ovals in the IndyCar. I mean, the Indy 500 will always be my favorite race in them, but it's just the racing that you get at Auto Club, being able to go 3, sometimes 4 wide, depending on conditions. You can't really get that anywhere else.
Yeah, I've been mentioning this all throughout this broadcast, and I will mention it once again here in this interview. That 2015 IndyCar race, the last time IndyCar ran here, and that insane race that was. With that in the back of my head, I was expecting this race to be an absolute barn burner, and we got it even with the really challenging track conditions, with the track temperature super hot. Do you think that helped create this race that we saw here tonight, or do you think it would have been even more insane if the track temperatures were just a bit cooler?
I think it would have been close, either or. One of the biggest things was strategy-wise. It was a 125 lap race, and if you stretched it on fuel map 5 and even doing some lifting in the corners, you got about 44 laps if you were further back in the draft. So which you needed 42 laps minimum to be able to complete it in a 2-stop race. So I think that's what really kind of limited the aggression overall. I know first 2 stints, all of us were just sitting behind fuel saving. So maybe if it had been a 120 lap race or 135 lap race, maybe the strategy could have been different there. But that's definitely what led to a little bit more passive racing over the first couple stops. And Dave and I were just fuel saving like crazy. I mean, we had fuel map 1 all the way to the end after we came out of the pits, and then that caution came out and just disrupted everything. Because I truly believe Dave and I had the winning strategy for tonight. Obviously, Dave had the winning strategy anyways, but I think we would have come out ahead of everybody with being able to do that map 1. But hey, that's racing. Cautions come out unexpectedly, and you got to adapt.
And hey, it's still a P3 result for you at the end of this race. And gotta switch our attention now to the next race of this championship, Daytona on the road course. Not a lot of people know this, but IndyCar actually did some testing there back in the late 2000s, and first ever IndyCar race on a very big racetrack was actually at Daytona all the way back in 1959. It was even before before NASCAR ran their first ever July 4th race weekend, which I think was set to be an IndyCar race, but then they canceled it with how crazy of an IndyCar race back in 1959 it was there on the high bank. So running on the road course in 1 week's time, that's going to be a very unique challenge. So what are your thoughts heading there?
Absolutely. I mean, especially because come this next Monday, we're going to get the IndyCar update and the new tire model. So it's going to be everybody's first time hopping into the car, figuring out how it functions. I'm really looking forward to it. Honestly, one of my favorite combinations for road course wise with the IndyCar is Sebring, which is a really bumpy track. And I think that Daytona will be similar with the infield, of where it's a lot of tight corners. It's a lot of bumpiness of where you got to manage the rear wheels trying to get settled and not having the wheel spin. And then a little bit of quote unquote oval racing once you get onto the banking, of just trying to make use of the draft. And we'll see if anybody sits behind and tries to fuel save while they're on that banking, or if they just try and push forward. because there's probably a good opportunity to leapfrog each other not once but twice on that banking. So I'll be curious to see. I've never actually driven the IndyCar around the Daytona road course, even for fun in the sim. So I'm looking forward to getting on track to practice and see how that goes.
You know, when I saw the schedule come out for this season, I looked at the road course and I was rather interested by how the racing action is going to be there. But hey, we'll get that answer in about 1 week's time here on SMB. But Josh, I'll let you give any thanks and shouts out before we let you go and celebrate this P3.
Absolutely. Shout out to the family for watching. Appreciate all the support that you guys lend me. Shout out to SRT. You guys are always pushing me. I mean, it used to be that I was kind of the oval expert on the team and having to teach Dave, Jake, everybody else. And it's actually kind of nice to see everybody surpass me, because now it means that I got to push even harder. And I love having that push from behind. Shout out to XMS for letting us run this series. We are going to be trying to push for a season 2. Hopefully all these updates are going to allow for a renewed vigor of everybody trying to drive the IndyCar. And then lastly, shout out to you guys, SMB. We appreciate you guys doing the broadcast. Glad we could put on a heck of a show in that final stint with the top 4 or 5 of us, and looking forward to these last 2 races.
And I'll tell you what, I'm going to say exactly what I said as we were taking a look at a replay of that finish. That better end up on iRacing's top 10 highlights for the month, because, man, that was absolute insanity. 3 wide right to the line, and I think it was 36 hundredths of a second between you in P3 all the way up to your teammate Dave Menino in P1. So just absolutely fantastic stuff here, Josh. Always nice to have a chat with you at the end of these broadcasts, and looking forward to seeing you out on the racetrack for the final 2 races of the season.
Likewise. Thank you guys. I appreciate all you do.
And that right there was Josh Shinsky in the number 18 car, P3 finisher at the end of this race. And Kennan, I'll let you have the opportunity to have a chat with the man who came up oh so close in this race, our P2 finisher of Stephen Hudek.
Hey, Stephen Hudek, nice to have you up here in the SMB booth. Really close finish there, just absolutely thrilling final 25 laps. You kind of came up with the short end of the stick on that run to the finish line. Obviously a leader of very much of the race. Tell me how you're feeling and your emotions right now coming up P2.
Yeah, it sucks to come up like 1/100th short, but it is what it is. Looking back on the replay, I think I was discussing with my spotter to I should probably take the apron on the last lap, right? And we're thinking, yeah, I'd probably take the apron on the last lap. I think either I joined the apron a little too early or a little too aggressively, because I think I heard the engine revs blip momentarily as I crossed the line to the apron. I think that's ultimately what allowed Dave to pass me for the win at the line. But it is what it is.
It's quite interesting. We know you were up front throughout most of the race, had 2 really nice pit stops, obviously the third being under the yellow flag. How do you feel like it puts you having to run the bottom? The 2 SRT team obviously was kind of forcing you to have to be the inside line guy coming into the final 5 laps. Do you feel like you wish you could have maybe positioned yourself into a different line, run the outside, maybe seen how a run to the line from there would have gone differently than the inside?
I was discussing it with my spotter. Like, I was really comfortable down the inside line. That was kind of my preferred line. Around here, it's quite easy to defend on the inside. You just have to, in these weather conditions, you have to sort of open up the corner on entry a little bit to be able to successfully stay on the bottom. If you just sort of hug the white line the entire lap, you're gonna drift wide on the exit. But we had a plan on the last lap to sort of drift as wide on corner entry as possible, but with Josh sort of threatening to make it 3 wide in turn 3, I didn't want to force Dave to go 2 wide and possibly make a collision there. So sort of split the difference there, and I thought I got a good enough line run out of the corner, but like I said, I think it was how I approached the apron. I think it was what ultimately did me in at the end.
You could see it. It's one of the things that I think makes the XMS IndyCar League so special is it is a lot of camaraderie. There is a lot of very intense wheel-to-wheel racing, but nobody's looking to end each other's day. It wouldn't have been a very good conversation while the cars were parked out of turn 4 wrecked. So you see that give and take in the run of the line, and it was really a well-done job. You had a fantastic finish. Going into the final 2 races of the season, we've got Daytona next week on the road course. How are you looking to see that? Have you ever run the IndyCar Daytona road course? And what your thoughts are going to the final 2 races in the championship and getting a good finish?
Yeah, going into the in the last 2 races, certainly going to be interesting with the new iRacing physics update. I've run enough laps at Daytona that I kind of feel I know what I'm doing and I have a good idea of what my strategy is, but unfortunately, I have to travel next week for work. I'll be out of town from Monday morning through about the afternoon on Thursday, so I only have the couple of hours before the race to get on the sim and try out the physics model update and try to get my head wrapped around it. So it's definitely going to be a bit challenging for me next week, but I'm still feeling confident I can keep up.
Yeah, and I feel confident just watching the way you race today. You're a well-done driver, and you will perform very well next week at Daytona, even with a little shorter time to get prepared and practice. Anybody you'd like to give a shout-out to? Some sponsors, people at home, anybody you want to thank for being here, being able to be on the racetrack today?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank my buddy Noah for helping me spot me, I should say, tonight. And thanks to my wife, and it's my mother-in-law's birthday today, so I'll give a shout-out to her. I know other friends and family are watching, my dad and a couple other friends, so I'd like to thank them all for watching and supporting. And you guys obviously do a wonderful job putting on the races. Broadcast is always amazing. I always watch it back afterwards. And thank you again to XMS for putting on a good show. It's been a really good run so far this season, and the last couple of races are going to be no different.
Thank you so much, man. That's Steven Hudek, P2 finisher, barely loses a race by maybe a popsicle stick, and just an absolutely thrilling 3-wide finish. So thank you so much, man. Best of luck at Daytona.
Thank you, guys.
And there was our P2 finisher. I like that there, Kennan. Finish P2 by a popsicle stick right at the end of that race. So I may end up having to steal that from you. We'll have to talk about some sort of compensation to get that line from you. But one driver I want to have a chat with is our race winner at the end of it all, Dave Menon, now joining us in the commentary booth. Dave, well done on the win. That had to have been tense from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, for the first 90 or so laps, it was kind of a nice Sunday drive, and then once the caution hit, it really kind of turned into a real race. So, yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah, that looked absolutely insane. I want to ask you about your perspective in that battle right towards the end, because had that perspective of racing your teammate and also racing your main championship rival here in this season. So lots of stuff had to have been going through your mind when it came to that end of race battle.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of had a bit of a look at Steven, and I realized my best chance was going to be off of 4 getting in some draft, because I couldn't quite clear him before turning into turn 1 to take the inside. So it was kind of just sticking with him and not letting Josh really get by and make it 3 wide. So thankfully it worked out. It was really close, and Steven did a great job at defending.
Yeah, and you did an absolutely fantastic job as well, timing that run to perfection. As my colleague in the commentary booth, Mr. Kennan Miller, said a couple of moments ago, finishing with the race win by just a popsicle stick between yourself and Hudek right at the very end. So absolutely fantastic stuff to get your 4th win of this season. Gonna hit the final 2 rounds of this championship, running strong, trying to seal the deal in that driver's crown. So what are your thoughts heading into the next race of the season at Daytona on the road course?
Yeah, I would say it's a little less about the track and more that we're gonna have the new update out. So these cars will handle totally differently, and I'm sure there's gonna be tons of upgrades and a bit of a relearning for sure.
Yeah, trying to relearn the wheel, so to speak, in that race that we have coming up. I'm certainly looking forward to some of the changes, but That's just from my perspective here in the commentary booth. I'm sure those changes from season to season can be a little bit frustrating to get used to, but hey, still find yourself in a good spot right towards the end of the season to try and get used to this new car and also maybe win a championship at the end of it all as well. But Dave Menino, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Well done on the 4th win for you this season. And before we let you go and celebrate and get some practice in potentially for Daytona, is there anyone you will give a thanks or a shout out?
Yeah, would like to thank you guys at Slow Motion Broadcast for the broadcast, and would like to thank Josh in particular. He really kind of coached me up on how to run around here, and you know, it paid off for sure.
Well, that certainly did. A P1 here at Auto Club, and hey, I think that makes up for the fact that you weren't present for the Indy race. What do you say?
Yeah, no, we'll take it for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks for joining us in the commentary booth. Well done on the victory, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the final 2 races.
Great, thanks guys.
And that right there was Dave Menino, your P1 finisher at the end of this race. Just about nothing right at the end. Some fantastic stuff from all 3 of those racers to give us a battle of a lifetime right towards the end. But Kennan, switching our attention now, Daytona on the road course next time out for this series. That's going to be a wild one.
Yeah, Daytona certainly a mix of high speed and low speed corners. You've got essentially the full NASCAR oval and some twists and turns to get through the 2 horseshoes in the infield. So it is a little bit of a smooth track. I think the IndyCars will handle it fine, but it's certainly a unique track to an IndyCar schedule, and that's going to provide some really different kind of racing. I think between the draft and the mix of who's fast in the infield, who's maybe running a little lower downforce, keeping up the speed, making up time on the outfield. So it'll be a lot. It'll be a really good race. It's going to be one to really look forward to here on the Slow Motion Broadcasting Network.
Yeah, and to all of you tuning into this broadcast here on SMB tonight, we've got a lot of racing action to look forward to as we wrap up the racing action here for Season 2 of 2025 here on SMB. We just wrapped up the season for the Sim Racers Group F4 Series. We'll have some more action from them, including some F3 races coming up this season. The XMS INDYCAR Championship Series you'll be able to catch for the final 2 rounds on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern here on SMB. Then come time for this weekend, we have got you booked with some Weekend Warriors racing action. The season finale for the Formula Vs on Saturdays at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Then come time for Super Sundays here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. You can catch the Formula Fords in their season finale at 1:45 and the Spec Racer Fords later on at 3:45. XSLR you can also catch on Sundays at 8:10 p.m. Eastern. So that's all the stuff to look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting in the not too far off future. Gives you a good reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But as for this broadcast here tonight, for round number 6 of the XMS IndyCar Championship Series here on Auto Club, I think that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Kennan Miller joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a fantastic job working on the cameras and the graphics and the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting tonight, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.